They say a museum is a place where humanity stores its memory, a sanctuary of beauty, tragedy, genius, and sometimes secrets. But one night in the heart of Boston, that sanctuary was broken into. And what followed wasn't just a robbery. It was an erasure. The most valuable art heist in modern history, and strangely, one that remains unsolved, almost forgotten, like a ghost the world doesn't want to remember. This is the story of the billion-dollar art heist nobody talks about. It begins on the night of March 18, 1990, while the city slept after St. Patrick's Day celebrations. Two men dressed as police officers pulled up to the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum, a stately, almost eccentric Venetian-style palace, built by a woman who believed art should live like it was alive, among plants, music, and the messy rhythms of human breath. The guards inside must have thought the uniforms meant safety. But uniforms, as history shows us, can hide wolves. Within minutes, duct tape was pressed across mouths, wrists bound, and two men, posing as law, moved like ghosts through marble halls. For 81 minutes, they wandered through centuries of human brilliance, deciding what would vanish from our collective memory, and what they took was staggering. A Vermeer, one of only 34 known to exist. A Rembrandt, ripped straight from its frame. Manet, Degas, even a bronze eagle finial from the top of a flagpole, 13 pieces in total. Priceless, not because of their market value, but because they were singular, irreplaceable. In today's terms, more than $1 billion worth of art disappeared into the night. But here's the strange part. No alarms, no frantic chase, no dramatic recovery. It was almost too clean. The thieves seemed unhurried. They even ignored certain masterpieces that would have been easier to sell. Why? Was it greed? Or something deeper, stranger? A theft not for money, but for leverage, for secrets, for power. Decades later, experts still whisper that the Gardner heist doesn't make sense as a simple crime. Some suspect the mafia using stolen art as collateral in drug deals. Others imagine wealthy private collectors hiding stolen Vermeers in underground bunkers, gazing at them in solitude, like Gollum with his ring. But what gnaws at me isn't the who. It's the silence. How can the largest art theft in history slip so easily from our public imagination? We obsess over the Mona Lisa's smile. We mourn when Notre Dame burns. But somehow, we've let this crime drift like smoke. Maybe it's easier to forget. Maybe it's more comfortable not to know that even our most sacred cultural treasures can vanish in a single night. Isabella Stewart Gardner herself had prepared for such a moment, though not in the way you might expect. In her will, she left a peculiar condition. The museum must remain exactly as she arranged it, forever. If anything were removed, the empty space must stay, untouched, a permanent reminder of loss. So when you walk through the Gardner today, you don't just see paintings. You see absence. Empty frames still hang on the walls like bodies without souls. The void stares back at you. It's haunting. A crime frozen in time, not just remembered but physically displayed. Like a wound the museum refuses to heal. Investigators chased leads across continents. Boston mobsters, Irish gangs, even whispers of corrupt politicians and shadowy billionaires. The FBI offered millions in reward money. The museum pleaded for the art's safe return. But every trail ended in smoke. Witnesses dead, suspects silent, evidence evaporated. And over 30 years later, the Gardner heist remains unsolved. Yet there's something about that word, unsolved. It makes us think of mystery novels, of detectives in trench coats. But in truth, unsolved means something colder. It means families of guards who were gagged and humiliated never got closure. It means the brushstrokes of Vermeer, the subtle light Rembrandt conjured, may never be seen again by human eyes. Unsolved means pieces of our shared soul are gone, and here's the darker layer. Art theft isn't rare. The black market for stolen masterpieces is worth billions. Some are traded like poker chips between criminals. Others locked away by secretive buyers who want to own what no one else can touch. When you think about it, art, the very thing meant to connect us, is often treated as currency by those who care least about its meaning. $1 billion of art is missing, yes. But what really was stolen? Not money, not property. What was stolen was access. Humanity's ability to stand in front of a canvas and feel the quiet pulse of history breathing through it. That's what was taken that night. Sometimes I wonder, where are those paintings now? Are they rotting in some damp basement, canvas curling, colors fading into oblivion? Or are they hidden in plain sight, hanging on the walls of someone's private villa, admired only by a select few who pretend to appreciate what they truly don't understand. And then I think of Isabella Stewart Gardner herself, a woman who lived boldly, who wanted her museum to be alive with music and conversation, not silence. What would she think knowing her palace now contains not just beauty but scars? The Gardner heist isn't just about stolen art, it's about how we measure loss. We live in a world where so much disappears: species, languages, traditions, even memories. Sometimes we don't notice until it's too late. The empty frames in Boston are a reminder that erasure isn't always loud. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it slips past us while we're distracted. Maybe that's why this story doesn't get told as often as it should. Because it isn't just a crime story. It's a mirror. It asks us uncomfortable questions. What do we value? What would we fight to protect? And what if stolen from us, would we simply let fade into myth? The billion-dollar art heist at the Gardner Museum remains unsolved, but in a way, the mystery is already solved. The truth is hanging there in those empty frames. The art may be gone, but the absence, it speaks. And maybe it's telling us something we've been too afraid to hear. That nothing is ever truly safe. Not even beauty. The Gardner case is not a blank wall. It's covered with fingerprints, rumors, and half-truths. Over the years, the FBI has chased shadows through Boston's underworld. And if there's one thing Boston had in the 1990s, it was shadows. One of the earliest suspects was the Italian mob, in particular the Patriarca crime family. At the time, they controlled a network of rackets stretching from Boston to Providence. Art experts will tell you, stolen masterpieces aren't like stolen cars. You can't sell a Vermeer on Craigslist. You need leverage. And for criminals, art can be a bargaining chip, something you trade for a reduced sentence, or as collateral for a drug shipment. And there's a chilling detail. Investigators found that the thieves seemed to know the museum's weaknesses. The alarms on certain artworks had been disabled just days before. Was it an inside job, or just luck? The guards that night were young, underpaid, and, according to the FBI, less than professional. One of them even buzzed the fake police into the building against protocol. Was he duped, or complicit? In the years after the heist, names surfaced like ghosts in the dark. Bobby Donati, a mobster with a reputation for violence who bragged about having a Rembrandt hidden away. Bobby Guarente, another figure in the Patriarca family, who supposedly passed some of the art to an associate before his death. And perhaps most compelling of all, James Whitey Bulger, Boston's infamous Irish mob boss. Bulger denied involvement, but let's be honest, Bulger denied a lot of things. Rumor had it that he at least knew who did it. Some say he even used the paintings as bargaining chips to negotiate with law enforcement. But if he did, the bargain never stuck. And Bulger himself was eventually hunted down and killed in prison. So if these men had the art, where is it now? Experts believe at least some of the works may have been moved overseas, possibly to Ireland, where paramilitary groups like the IRA were known to dabble in art trafficking. Imagine that, a Vermeer painting meant to hang in quiet sunlight, hidden in a farmhouse in the Irish countryside, traded between men with rifles and political manifestos. The FBI eventually went public with their theory. In 2013, they announced that they believed they knew who committed the crime. 2 Boston area mobsters, now both dead. Which, of course, makes things simple. Dead men don't talk. Dead men don't return stolen paintings. But here's where the story turns even stranger. Despite the FBI's declaration, no art has been recovered. Not a single piece. It's as if the paintings have been swallowed whole by time. And so the case drifts, like a ship without a harbor, into myth. Art crime experts like Anthony Amori, head of security at the Gardner, often remind us, recovery is possible. Paintings surfaced decades later. In 2019, a Picasso stolen from a Greek museum was found in a forest. In 2006, Norway recovered Edvard Munch's The Scream after 2 years of chasing criminals. Stolen art doesn't vanish completely. It waits. But the Gardner's paintings have waited for more than 30 years. And still, the frames remain empty. And maybe that emptiness is the point. The Gardner heist is not just a story about mobsters and mistakes. It's about fragility, about how quickly the things we consider eternal can disappear. Museums like to present art as timeless. But all it takes is 81 minutes, 2 uniforms, and a roll of duct tape for time to collapse. If you ever visit Boston, step inside the Gardner Museum. Walk through its courtyard, where the air smells faintly of flowers and old wood. Then look at the Dutch Room, You'll see the empty frames still hanging, one for the Rembrandt, one for the Vermeer. They hang there not as decoration, but as scars, as silent witnesses to a night when beauty was kidnapped. And standing there, you might feel it, the strange, unsettling presence of absence. It's as if the paintings are still there, haunting the walls, whispering from behind the emptiness. And maybe that's what Isabella Stewart Gardner wanted all along. Not a museum of possessions, but a museum of memory, of ghosts. The billion-dollar art heist at the Gardner remains unsolved. But maybe the real heist isn't the one that happened in 1990. Maybe the real heist is happening now. Every day we allow beauty to fade into private vaults. Every time we let culture become currency. Every time we forget what was stolen. The Gardner's empty frames aren't just reminders of a crime. They're reminders of a question. What do we choose to remember? And what, if stolen from us, will we allow to disappear forever? And so the Gardner Museum stands today, a palace of silence and shadows. The walls still breathe, but the air carries the weight of what was taken. 13 masterpieces gone in a single night, yet their absence speaks louder than any brushstroke ever could. We can imagine them. Vermeer's light spilling gently across a room, Rembrandt's soul etched into canvas. Degas' dancers frozen mid-motion, yet all we see are empty frames, echoing a void that stretches across decades. It is a reminder that beauty is fragile, and even the most sacred treasures are not safe from the hands of those who would claim them for power, greed, or secrecy. But perhaps there is something more here, something haunting, yet strangely alive. The theft may have stolen the art, but it cannot steal the story, the fascination, the wonder that it continues to inspire. Each empty frame is a mirror, reflecting our own yearning, our own desire to protect what we love, to remember what cannot be replaced. And maybe in that reflection, there is hope. Hope that one day the paintings will return, that they will hang again in the light they were meant to live in. Or maybe the hope lies in remembering, in telling the story over and over, keeping alive the pulse of those vanished works. Because even in absence there is presence, even in loss there is legacy. The billion-dollar art heist at the Gardner Museum may remain unsolved, but its power endures. It teaches us, haunts us, and whispers to every visitor who walks through those quiet halls that some treasures, though taken from our sight, can never be taken from our hearts. And in that perhaps lies the true masterpiece,